Hello, and welcome to another episode of Myths and Stories, a Destiny 2 lore podcast. We are continuing our history of the Eliksni. We had a blast doing all these histories, and this is the next one we're doing. Uh, so, in the first couple of parts, we talked about their home world, how beautiful and lovely and peace-loving Reese was. Into the whirlwind, their version of the collapse, and the darkness chasing them off this out of their home world and into the long drift, and them becoming outlaw pirates, and law of survival won out over everything, all the way into them coming into our solar system, into the Sol system, and their first couple of major offenses into human territory, the last city, the big battles, the Battle of Six Fronts, I can't remember the name of the other one now. Myth.
Twilight
I'm drawing
Gap.
a blank. Twilight Gap. There it is. It's because I hate that map in PvP. I'm telling you right now. In my head that place doesn't exist. I know it's super important, but in my head I'm like, to hell with that place. I hate it. And then of course we covered the Reef Wars and Mara's intervention with the House of Wolves, and God, that I'm still pumped up from that battle. That lore entry is probably one of my most recently read favorites. Her screaming, "Starlight was my mother, and the darkness was my father." Like, I mean, just thinking of that just gets me pumped up.
Mm-hmm.
So today, we're gonna keep going with that myth. Where are we starting?
Yeah, so today we are going to be starting off with the introduction of what is now a very well-known character, but at the time, was a nobody. That happened on the tail end of the Reef Wars. Now, timeline gets a little funky here, so we are going to be starting with Shir Ido coming across a particular Eliksni during the Reef Wars. We're reading it at at our telling at the end of the Reef Wars, but technically this happened somewhere in the middle, because Shir, met her untimely end in whatever, method that happened, in the midst of the Reef Wars. Most likely, yes. But so we're not exactly sure where this fits into things, but I wanted, because it's such a important character, I kind of wanted to separate it out from the Reef Wars proper. So that's why we're reading it here.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We are going to be reading a chapter from the lore book The Dreaming City, which came out with Forsaken, and the chapter is named Misrax. And it goes like this. The Vandal stoops as he exits the galliot. All of his arms are bound behind his back, so he cannot shield his eyes from the bright sun. A breeze stirs his cloak. There's a cliff behind him and lush gardens ahead. His jailer would not grant him the honor of a quick death, so she must intend to torture him. She thinks he will yield like the flesh lovers from House Judgment. She is wrong. Whatever indignities she can muster are nothing compared to what he deserves. With his chin held high, he imagines shucking off his armor and laying all four of his arms in his captain's hands. His captain is his mother, and she will not dock him with a scythe. She will twist and tear his arms from his body like she is shucking a fine, fat crab for dinner, and he will be glad of the slow, sick cracks and crunches of his bones. He will be glad of the shame. Let him go limbless for the rest of his wasted life. Let the ether thirst shrivel him up like a fig. What do you think? his jailer asks in a language he cannot understand. She steps up beside him and claps a hand on his shoulder. He flinches. She is nearly as tall as he is, and for a creature with no claws, her grip is strong and sure. Together, they contemplate the gardens. It's all a bit much for my taste, she admits as he sneaks a furtive look at her. Her bow is unstrung. There is only one arrow in her quiver. She is stupid. He whirls, trips her, and sprints for the cliff. She swears, recovers, and lunges after him. As he pitches himself off the edge, he thinks of his mother's shame and prays that she forgets him. Better that she never had a son than a weakling so easily captured by the enemy. It is his bad luck that she catches his foot with one hand. His helmet slams into the rocky cliffside. A piece of his rebreather cracks off and disappears into the mist far below. He flails, but he cannot drag her down with him. Somehow, she hauls him in like a fish. As soon as she has him on solid ground, she binds his ankles with the string of her bow. All right, she says, catching her breath. All right. She chuckles, pats his shoulder fondly, and then pulls him upright like a sack of pisaks. She takes a step back, brushing off her hands against the seat of her trousers. He glowers, the surliest sack this side of the great machine, hating her horrible squared-off teeth and her blunt, stubby fingers. Let's try this again, shall we? Drawing two fractal knives from the sheaves at her thighs, she makes a perfect Aurelius bow before him. Thunderstruck, he sits up straight and stares. Not good? She asks, and tries again. Furious confusion takes him. This is some kind of trick, blasphemous mockery. You're so vex, he rumbles. She shakes her head. Nama. Sheathing one of her knives, she holds out her free hand with her fingers spread in supplication. He draws his chin towards his throat with this fresh betrayal, narrowing his secondary eyes. It speaks. Slowly, without breaking eye contact, she lays her other knife on the ground between them. The blade points toward her boots. He watches her every movement. How many secrets have the flesh lovers betrayed that this creature can make peace like a cringing Drek before his kell? She taps two fingers against her cuirass. Sure, she says slowly, and then points at him. Honor bound, even as he simmers in scandal, he replies, Misrax, Velask siu risk. Mithrax, she repeats, and then grins. Velask, Mithrax, and welcome. Let's have a look about, shall we? And that's the end of that lore card.
I do love this one, and there's now obviously we've talked about Mithrax before during the pirate era, the long bleh, not the long
drift.
haul. I keep wanting to call it the long haul, but and then I think of because in my brain it's like the long drift. Oh, the drifter. Oh, he has the haul, so it's got to be called the long haul. I don't know why my brain works like that, but that's what it does. So during the long drift, we talked about Mithrax and his stepbrother Rackus, the spider.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always been this thing about Mithrax, and this entry at the very end of it is one of the first times that it's actually kind of really brought out in the open. He has two names, but not really. He is called Misrax, Misraaks. That is his true name. But for whatever reason, we, humans, guardians, whatever, English-speaking beings, have always pronounced it Mithrax, Mithrax. Um, is that literally just I've been wondering this for a while now. Is this literally just a mispronunciation of his name, and he's just accepted it as like an endearing term?
This is exactly what it is.
That's all it
His
is.
Yep. They heard, Shearer, presumably being the first one, heard his name, in the way that his probably very broken, well, I guess he didn't know English or any, dialect that was known in the Soul System. He just knew Eliksni. And so
Sure.
the Eliksni pronunciation of his name, Mistrax, uh, sure took and interpreted as Mithrax, and it is just
It's
stuck
stuck.
ever since. Yeah.
That's yeah. I've always wanted to kind of like call that out and point that out, but it's literally just a mispronunciation of his name that he has two names. During the season of the Plunder, there was one point where like Spider's like poking a jab at him. And he's like, "Hey, Mithrax," and he says it like this, almost like
Yeah.
this super like Boston accent, right? Like he's like trying to throw it at him, and Mithrax just kind of shrugs it off like, you know your place. Get back in it. Um, but yeah, so this entry, obviously Shiraido has captured him, and he's so convinced like he's not going to have anything of it. Like he's not going to be taken prisoner. He's pissed at himself for being caught, and then the first chance he gets, he's like, I'm out. And I do like this one. Her bow is unstrung. There's only one arrow in her quiver. My first thought when you read that was like, I only need one because it's Shiraido
Yeah.
and she's just a badass, right? Like that's. But of course, Mithrax sees this as like, she's dumb. Like she's so dumb to not have her weapon ready. Like I'm out. You know, does a little flip kick and drops her and jumps off the cliff, and he's literally diving to his death right there. Like he's jumping off of the dreaming city into the nothingness that is space.
He is full on attempting suicide here because he, in his mind, in his culture, and remember, knowing what we know about his time during the Long Drift and the way his mother ruled their catch.
Oh yeah.
It was very much a with an iron fist. Like if you didn't do what you were supposed to be doing, you were going to have retribution. And he sees being captured by the enemy as like the ultimate shame within his group. And especially we got to remember that Mithrax and his mother are both of the House of Wolves. They came from the House of Gentle Weavers, which turned into the House of Wolves. So they are the primary force at war with the Awoken right now. So it is, he is a prisoner of war, essentially.
Absolutely. And as with any prisoner of war, obviously there's a interesting exchange going on here. And like when he grumbles this, I don't even know what this word is. Like she does obviously some sort of ceremonious Eliksni bow to him, and he's just like, get the hell out of here. Where'd you learn that? Like, and then so she tries again, and then he's just pissed. Now he's like, now you're just making fun of me. Now this is bullshit. You've caught me. Now you're just messing with me. And then he mumbles something. I have no idea what this word is. Irisovics. I'm assuming he's cussing at her. Or something. And then she replies back in Eliksni, which is where he's just completely like, what the hell is going on here? And so I think that like that, it's like that little exchange there, like her doing that Eliksni bow into then replying to him in Eliksni is this like weird space for him now. Like he doesn't know what to think of this. So when she, taps on her chest and sheer, like she's like pointing at herself, sheer, and then points at him, and he's just like Misrex, and He doesn't even know, like, he's it's so entrenched and honor bound in him that he now has to answer her because of this show
Mm-hmm.
of whatever, that he just kind of, it almost like, I see it as him, as it just like falling out of his mouth, right, like just Miss Rex, and now he's like, where the fuck did that come from? And so she's like, okay, Mithrax, well, let's go have some fun now.
Yeah, and it's funny. So, yeah, this seems to be some kind of customary like proper introduction to one another.
Yeah.
Because she says her name is Sheer, and he responds, Mistrax, Velosk, and he tries to say her name back, Shiurix,
Yep.
Shiurix. Uh, and Velosk, I'm thinking means greetings or hello, because she says it back. Then Velosk
Yep.
Mithrax. Uh, and I find it interesting that he feels honor bound to respond to this gesture, because I think if it were his mother, she is so disgusted with the old ways of the Eliksni people by the point that the
Oh
long drift
yeah.
ends, that I don't think she would feel the same necessity to respond.
Because this would be a very old world Reese
Right,
type thing.
right.
Interesting.
And so this tells me that, like, as much as he still is afraid, honestly, and wants to please his captain, his mother, he has more respect for the culture they came from than I think she does.
Yeah. I think so. I definitely think that he, yeah. I yeah. 100%.
Yeah. Which kind of, makes sense considering where he ends up, and especially in the role of a splicer, which is a very, old world kind of
Yeah.
sacred tradition. But so Mithrax has met Shir Ido. As time goes on, forms a sense of camaraderie with her. Is no longer considered a prisoner, and is considered now a companion or compatriot. And we see that in the lore entry for the exotic gun Truth, the exotic rocket launcher that most people have probably forgotten exists. Uh, and we also see where another very recently reintroduced character um, came from during this time period. So the lore card for Truth goes like this. Smoke winds away from the battlefield in wavering scarves. Corsairs and crows move through the wreckage in pairs, searching for their dead. When they find awoken survivors, they call for help. When they find a devil or a wolf, they call for a field medic and prison grade restraints. A vandal watches all of this from the wings of a galliot, with his forearms folded around his knees. He knows battle, and so death does not disturb him. He was born of war, made for it, shaped by it. And yet, as he stares out at the charred bodies of his cousins, at the bent bodies of his new allies, Vel, Cher says, startling him. He peers down to find her on tiptoes, chin on the edge of the galliot's wing. She juts her thumb over her shoulder, indicating the battlefield. Paramo quilum? He frowns. Res quilum, pisix. She frowns back at him, though she only has two eyes. Her stare is mother strong. The vandal sighs and lets go of his knees. Varicis, he grumbles as he slides off the galliot, skulking past her. Ha, ha, she replies humorously. He picks his way down to the worst of it and joins the search. Over the next hour, he finds a wolf that he half remembers from a distant relative's coming of age ceremony. Three devils who look at him with uncomprehending confusion and anger, and one crow irretrievably trapped beneath the fuselage of his ship. He is about to abandon a ruined devil's skiff when he hears a faint hiss from inside a ventilation shaft. He clambers up to peer into its grate and sees 4 weary eyes staring back at him. A hatchling, still soft and translucent with its egg molt. Carefully, he pries the grate open and beckons to her. Velask kelek, he murmurs. Nankamarak. She crawls into his palm, and his heart surges. That's the end of that card.
Oh, I'm gonna cry on that one. This is this is an emotional one. Like, it starts off as just like this kind of like, yeah, battlefield, kind of. I'm assuming kind of like a scuffle during the Reef Wars or something like that has
Yeah.
happened, and they're kind of doing cleanup and stuff, and she, she's Shears over there like motioning towards battlefield, like, hey, you want to come check it out? And he's just like, this is dumb. I don't want to do this, and then he goes out, and you find kind of like what you would expect to find, a couple of guys that he's seen before, and he's like, yeah, I think I remember these guys. Some who have no idea who he is or why he's helping the enemy, and then of course a crow who's just he's kind of screwed. He's stuck. And then this little hatchling, this little smallin, and it he rescues this smallin, and it just crawls into his arms, and he's so happy. It's such a feel good moment.
It is.
I like it.
It is. And anyone familiar with Mithrax during the current season, I may correctly guess that this is the moment where Mithrax finds Ido, who is now fashioned as his daughter, his adopted daughter, and is in fact named for his friend Sheer Ido.
Yep.
So this was the moment that he found her.
It's so heartwarming. It's such a good moment. Okay.
It is.
I'm done gushing. I promise.
So, with that, little silver lining, little glimmer of hope to the Reef Wars, and the Reef Wars coming to an end with the capture of Skolas and his forces. We are going to move ahead in the timeline a little bit.
And real quick before we do jump ahead, I did want to ask one last question. All of these prisoners and captured forces, they're all placed within the prison of elders, correct? Like this is the time that like the prison has been built. It's now being filled with all of these like Skolas. I can't think of any other high named ones right now off the top of my head, but I know we faced several of them in some D1 strikes.
Mm-hmm.
We faced some escapees later on in Forsaken, and then of course at this point I think we talked about this last episode, but the one lone member that's left of House Judgment, Varix, is now fully allied with the Queen and is like her personal, what would you call him? Her scribe,
advisor, I suppose. Yeah, probably advisor to all things Eliksni. And he is now the warden of the prison of elders. He looks after the prisoners there. And that's not to say that all of the House of Wolves ended up in the prison, because there are some that pledged fealty to Mara, under Varix's suggestion, and recognize her as the new Kel. And so kind
of like the ones we saw back in D1.
Yep.
In that cutscene where like our guardian is like, what the hell? Like, what are you doing with these fallen? And she's like, this one doesn't know these are mine.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, no, that is a good point. So a lot of them are prisoners in the prison of elders during this time. And that's particularly the House of Wolves that took part in that Reef War. The other three major houses, Kings, Devils, and Winter, they all just got pushed back at the Battle of Twilight Gap.
I was going to say, completely decimated there.
Very nearly getting a victory until the Guardians kind of rallied and pushed them back. And
specifically Shax. I want that
specifically
to be known.
Shax.
Shax and his screw you, Saladin. I'm doing my own thing. He's like, I will persevere. I can just see him like screaming at the other Guardians, throw more grenades. Like it's yeah.
No, that is absolutely what was happening. What do you mean you can't concentrate when I'm yelling?
Yes, that is why they failed. That is why the Eliksni failed at Twilight Gap.
So these houses, though, have taken major blows from their defeat at, Six Fronts, from the Devils, having lost at Six Fronts, and then all of the houses having lost at Twilight Gap. And that was the last major offensive from the Fallen or Eliksni against the city. After that point, they were too fractured, too few in number, and the city and the Guardians had just built up over time to make it even more insurmountable of a place to try and assault. And enter a lone ghost wandering around the ruins of the Cosmodrome on a particular road next to a bunch of rusted out cars, who comes across the body of a previous citizen and decides that's the one. That's their guardian.
VIP 2014.
Heck yes. And they resurrect us, the player guardian, in Destiny 1. And we play a very big part in what becomes of the houses after Twilight Gap. Throughout the course of Destiny 1 and its various expansions. So the very first thing that happens, the House of Devils. So after Twilight Gap, the House of Devils has lost their Kell and is being ruled by Rixus, who is the Devil's Archon. Now, for those that may not remember, the hierarchy essentially was that you had the Kell, you had the Barons, and the Archon was kind of in between the Baron and the Kell, and was considered the religious leader. They were the ones that worked on and fixed servitors, which are necessary to have ether, and the servitors are kind of seen as demigods in a sense.
I mean, without ether, the Eliksni are kind of screwed.
Just a bit, yeah.
I could definitely see why they're portrayed as essentially gods, like or demigods, I guess would be the more proper term.
So Twilight Gap, House Devils lost their Kell, so they're being ruled by the Archon, the religious leader that was kind of second in command to the Kell. However, what House of Devils and this Archon were not expecting was that on what I have to think they assumed was going to be a fairly routine scavenging trip of, oh, hey, we got a ping for this working warp drive off in this desolate area of the Cosmodrome. We're going to run over there. We're going to scavenge this warp drive. We can bring it back to the Ketch. Maybe that allows us to get some more ships up in the air. This will be a good day. However,
joke's on them.
There was somebody else also after that warp drive.
Oh, VIP 2014. That's another. We keep referring to our Guardian as VIP 2014 because in the Paladin logs, correct?
Yeah.
They refer to different members as VIP, whatever, VIP this, VIP this. Like Savathun has a VIP number, Varix has a VIP number. I'm sure Mara does. Like all the big name people. And anytime they're talking about the player guardian, they always refer to us as VIP 2014 because Destiny 1 came out in 2014.
Yeah. And it's the hidden dossiers
Yep.
that will indicate those. But so Rixus, the Archon of the House of Devils, the leader of the House of Devils, is on this salvaging trip, and as he crawls out of this tube, this dilapidated drainage pipe, into this interior room where this jump ship is just kind of hanging, still intact for the most part, comes across a lone guardian with a barely functioning Kvastov auto rifle, 100% white gear. Looks like they just woke up because they did. And wouldn't you know it, they die to him.
That's got to be like a kick in the like. How does an Archon, the leader of, I mean, normally would not be in a Kell position, I would think, but essentially in a Kell position at this point, being the leader, just get decimated by this no-name, freshly rezzed Guardian? Like,
yeah.
I mean, clearly we needed that jump ship more than he did.
So, there's a couple, if we really want to theorize here, there's a couple things it could be. We don't know that this was that Rixus had been the Archon for a long time. He could have been newly appointed. He could have just been the strongest thing left in the House of Devils at the time, or the only one that happens to be able to work on the servitors. So, we can hand wave away some of that. Plus, our Guardian is canonically really, really powerful compared to all the others out there.
Yeah, except for Ikora. Ikora is the only one that has this beat.
Yeah, I think you could argue for a few. Ikora definitely being one of them. But so needless to say, this House of Devils went from beaten but having leadership to now beaten and the highest form of leadership that they had just disappearing in an unexpected battle. And the Vanguard also noticed this unique opportunity. And so after learning that the Archon has been defeated for the House of Devils, the very first thing the Vanguard does is implement a strike team to go infiltrate the House of Devils base in the Cosmodrome to destroy their prime servitor, Sepix.
I mean, why wouldn't you? Like,
yeah,
this brand new dude just took out their highest ranked guy. Like, let's finish the job.
Exactly. Especially House Devils, who have been kind of a thorn in the side of the city for a very long time.
Sure.
They were the ones that attacked at Six Fronts. They were the ones that were the strategic leaders for the Battle of Twilight Gap. They see this as a we can maybe wipe them off the board if we can get rid of this.
Yeah.
So they send in a strike team, which that is what the Devil's Lair strike is, by the way. In game,
very first strike in D1.
You are going in to remove Sepix Prime because they are vulnerable, and it is in hopes that it will leave the House Devils fractured beyond repair. And as we do in the strike, we are successful in that. We go in, we kick down the door, we kill some spider tanks, and we take out Sepix. And now House Devils no longer has a servitor or an Archon to fix the servitor, and they are in a bad way.
Canonically, it's hard to separate that from gameplay because we know. I mean, there's a GM right now, a Grandmaster right now to go do Devil's Lair. So canonically, we have beat that once, and that was like the end, essentially the end of House of Devils. Like
the end for a while.
That's a better way to put it. The end for a while for House Devils. Like that's yeah.
Yeah.
Because video game, we also want to run strikes, so,
Right,
and
yeah.
we like loot, so
But we don't
yeah.
stop there. The very next house on our list is a house that we actually have not talked about up until now because it didn't exist until the beginnings of D1. And this is called the House of Exile. And
Ooh.
as it sounds, this is a house essentially made up of misfits and exiled members of other houses. And it does not have a Kel that it follows. Um, this is more a band of fallen or Eliksni that did not have anywhere else to go and are purely cooperating with each other out of necessity, out of survival.
Okay.
The other thing that is interesting about House Exile is that they are positioned on the moon, on Luna.
I think the only thing that isn't Hive on the moon, right?
Yeah, yeah, and there aren't any other fallen houses that have any official houses that have ever been on the moon in a major capacity like Exile is. And their main goal is, to try and steal relics from the Hive to bring themselves up in power.
Sure.
And the Guardian, good old VIP 2014, is on a
Yeah.
mission during D1 to find the Shrine of Oryx on the moon. And in the process of that mission, the Guardian ends up in the midst of a battle between the House of Exile and the Hive. And seeing the opportunity, the Guardian removes the major players that are in that skirmish of the House of Exile. The most prominent being the House of Exile Baron Frigoris.
I love your wording of that. Removes.
Yes, so we brutally murder.
There we go. That's the correct way to go about. No, yeah. I mean, kinda.
So, although we have not dealt the same kind of blow to House of Exile as we did to Devils, it was still a pretty big deal to have a Baron who, kind of third in command on the hierarchy. Kel, which
Absolutely.
Exile doesn't have, Archon, and then the Barons. So we've removed a Baron, and that's pretty significant for a small kind of misfit house like that.
We're just kicking people's faces in, like not even like how did
Yeah.
we the Guardian not just completely eliminate all the fallen? Like, I mean, we're just going around picking the biggest guy on the battlefield, going, I'm gonna kick his teeth in, and then we go kick his teeth in, and then he dies, and then we're like, all right, who's next? And the next guy's like, I've got the biggest teeth, and they're like, no, you don't, and they're dead now. Like, I don't know how we didn't just honestly, that's what genuinely kind of amazes me. Like when you come into D1, and to think of the history that's happened up until this point, right? Up until this little like skirmish onto the moon into House Exile, we've come across a few fallen in game in D1 at this point, but it's literally been like twos and threes. Like it's like nothing. And to think that there are even anything left at this point from all of the major offensive just completely failing is kind of mind-boggling. Like the Eliksni are kind of resilient.
Oh, they are. And we have to remember that not all Eliksni fall into the major houses at this point in time. Like clearly
That's
there
true.
were still the pirate crews. We're still going
Yep.
around for those that didn't join a house after the long drift. I assume there were groups of Eliksni that just didn't join a house period and just, tried to survive in whatever way they
Oh,
could.
sure.
But also these houses were really big. The
Millions or billions?
at least millions.
Okay.
Because we have to think the fleet, the military might of House of Wolves was calculated in the millions. A
Oh,
million
that's right.
plus.
That's right.
Presumably, the other houses, at least devils and winter and kings, are probably similar. So,
Yeah.
complete speculation, but we're maybe looking at like 10 million fallen out there, 10 million plus from those major houses, at least at their prime. And even if that gets cut down, then we're let's say like half of them are lost. There's still 5 million roaming around. And if they are not making a big push anymore, then 5 million spread across a bunch of different areas could stay under the radar. Some of them would be able to stay under the radar.
Because, well, and like in D1, like they were all over the Cosmodrome. They were all over the moon. They were all over Venus. Were there some on Mars? Or am I making that up?
No, there was at a time.
So I mean, we're talking they're just spread out everywhere.
Yeah, and I say actually that rolls us right into the very next house we're going to talk about, which is House Winter.
Okay.
So after our disassembling or at least collapsing of House of Devils and our blow made against House of Exile, House of Winter is next on our list. And House of Winter, if you remember, were the scientists. They were the more researchers and figure out how stuff works kind of speciality. And it would make sense that we find them on Venus in the Ishtar Sink, trying to break into the Ishtar Academy archive.
Like the old world human stuff. Like,
yes, like Golden
Age Ishtar Collective archive. Okay.
Yeah. So we have a mission that takes us down into the archive, and we discover that there are fallen of the House of Winter there trying to break in. And we push them out of the archive. We don't kill any major players as far as I remember.
I was gonna say, did we find the next biggest teeth guy and kick his teeth in too? There seems to be a theme going on here with original Destiny of just finding the biggest guy and kicking their teeth in.
Yeah, in that particular story mission, I don't think he's anything. It's a captain. I don't
just a captain,
maybe a baron, but not like a Kel or an Archon or anything.
Right.
But we fight them out. We push them out of the Ishtar Academy ruins. And after we do that, we receive word from the Vanguard that they have detected that the House of Winter Ketch has been seen on the surface of Venus near the Ishtar Sink. So this was not just a little scout team. Like their Ketch, their main mother ship, is on Venus. And again, VIP 2014 doesn't want to waste a good opportunity.
Oh, hell no.
And so that when the Vanguard organize a mission for the Guardian to raid the ship, they do it. They, us as the Guardian, go through Venus. And I remember bits and pieces of playing this mission. And I remember it being such a cool set piece, because you would come over kind of the hills of the Ishtar Sink, and you'd be looking down into this area with scattered fallen combatants, and there's just this giant ship sitting there.
I think I remember this.
I don't know that people realize the size of a Ketch.
Oh yeah.
We're used to seeing the little drop ships, but a Ketch is so much bigger.
Well, I mean, a Ketch, for size comparison or perspective, when you're this season, when you're doing Ketch Crash, you're literally raiding a Ketch.
Yes.
That's how big of I mean, they have rooms in there that holds 2 spider tanks.
Yeah.
Like these things are huge. They're genuinely huge spaces. I mean, because obviously you got to think like as far as like a fleet, like that big catch would house everything. It would house all the little drop ships, all the spider tanks, all the everything. So yeah, it's those things are huge. And I'm trying to remember when exactly this particular mission that you're talking about happens. Is this during the D1 campaign or was this one of the DLCs?
This was during the main D1 campaign.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So it is the one I'm thinking of. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So our guardian goes through, cuts their way, cuts their swath through the kind of scouting groups that are outside the catch, gathering up supplies and whatnot from the nearby Ishtar ruins. Fights their way to to the catch, fights their way to board the catch, and essentially single-handedly does a catch crash mission in a lot of ways. House Winter not as well equipped as some of the catches we come across in the catch crash stuff right now, but
Sure.
certainly lots of combatants, and Ghost even makes a reference that saying that there must be thousands of fallen on this catch. We beeline it straight for the bridge, for the seat of power, but the indication is that this catch is their home. This is
Yeah.
not just a ship. This is also their their main residence.
Yeah.
And aboard this catch are thousands, maybe tens of thousands, House Winter Eliksni. And they're all getting notice that one guardian has boarded the catch and is fighting their way to the bridge.
You got to think from like an Eliksni point of view, like every single Eliksni on that ship is like, this is one dude. What's wrong with all of you people? Just go kill him. Like, and so I almost feel like every single one there, like as they're hearing this guardian just make his way through their catch like it's nothing, are thinking, what in the hell is going on? And so each one of them has got to be like, well, maybe I'll be the guy to end this. And all I can think of is like as you're going through that mission, a little dreg pops out, and you're just like, pop, pop, and he's dead. And that one dreg, his whole thought for that day was like, I'm gonna be the guy to save the day, and he was not.
Oh yeah, no, that like every time a Dreg's trying to take us on, they know that if they kill a guardian, they are essentially guaranteed to become a vandal. They are
Yep.
guaranteed to double, if not triple, their ether rations because it is seen as that much of an accomplishment.
Yep. So just think, every time that you've died to a dragon game, they've been promoted.
Yep, every time you die to a Dreg, they're the next vandal you pop the head off.
That's not much of a promotion, I guess.
Yeah,
Maybe a side grade.
But it's an interesting thought. So on one hand, yes, it seems like, this ship of thousands would be like, okay, one guy, what's the big deal? On the other hand, remember that the Battle of Twilight Gap was multiple walker tanks, probably millions of Eliksni if their forces were equal to what the Wolves was bringing. And there were, I think, 20 named guardians that held that wall. I'm sure there were other forces that were unnamed, maybe civilians that manned the guns on the walls, maybe other guardians that just didn't get as much fame and glory from it, but 20 or 30 guardians and a couple civilians fended off potentially millions of Eliksni at Twilight Gap.
Dude, that's kind of that's kind of mind-blowing, to be honest. Like,
yeah.
So
on one hand, like, it's 1,000 versus 1. What's the big deal? On the other hand, they've seen what a well-equipped guardian can do to a lot more than 1,000 Eliksni.
All right.
So needless to say, our guardian proves that that was not a one-off occurrence, does fight their way to the bridge of the ship, and is successful in killing Dracus, the Winter Kell.
Bam. So we've killed. So as far as us, the Guardian, we've killed an Archon, a Prime Servitor, a couple of Barons, a Kell. Like we are kind of badass.
We'll bet. We'll bet. Uh, we are certainly not the only factor, but we are a pretty major factor as to why the fallen houses are in the state they're in at right now in game.
Yeah.
We the player guardian have played no small role in the disruption and extinction of some of these houses.
Jesus. Maybe, are are we the bad guys?
I mean, it's tough, right? Like, it's an invading force.
Some of our gear has skulls on it. I think we're the bad guys.
To be fair, some of the Guardian armor is literally bones of various things they've killed. So
we might be the bad guys, man.
So our player Guardian has stormed Winter Ketch, has killed the Winter Kell, but House Winter is inventive. They're not going to go down just because their main leader has gone down.
Sure.
There are some other options that they have, and so in an attempt to keep their house stabilized, House Winter reaches out to a houseless Eliksni, who would be considered a Kell in power, who is purely a mercenary named Tannix. And they hire Tannix to break into the prison of elders and free a old House of Wolves Archon named Axor, in hopes that Axor would then join House Winter and become their new leader, and therefore stabilize the power structure of the house.
Is this the beginning of so we have different things for different races of Destiny, right? If something is Vex related and we can't explain it, it's for some Vex reason. If something's Hive related and we can't explain it, or even Awoken or anything like that, it's fucking Toland. Is Tannix the new? Is he the Eliksni version of fucking Toland? Is it just fucking Tannix now? Is that what's happening? Is this the beginning of that? Because you know how many times we fight and kill Tannix?
Oh, I know.
Okay.
So we don't quite meet Tannix yet.
Okay.
So what ends up happening is House Winter hires Tannix to break into the prison of elders and free this Archon Axor, which he does successfully. He's able to free. He doesn't necessarily break the Archon out, but he literally takes the whole jail cell with him, the whole pod,
the entire pod.
Yeah, that Axor is being kept in. And leaves it with the House of Winter and essentially says, I've completed my contract. It's up to you to get him out of this thing and wake him up now.
Sounds legit.
Yep. You said you wanted him. You didn't say in what state. So here you go.
Didn't clarify. So here he is.
However, a break into the prison of elders does not go unnoticed.
No, it's a prison.
Yeah. The Vanguard are made aware of this prison break, and they send a strike team to figure out what happened to this prisoner. We've got readings, we've got indications that after the prison break, there was a ship that left with telemetry towards Venus. So go to Venus and figure out what the heck happened. And so strike team of Guardians, and this was a strike in Destiny 1, arrives on Venus and fights their way through to the Ishtar Sink once again. And they arrive just in time to see Axor pop out of this prison of elders pod.
I remember this one. Now I remember this one as a Taken King strike, because he in the Taken King one it's a Taken kill, and that one was
Right.
hard. That was a hard Nightfall. Like that was a
Oh
genuinely
yes.
hard one.
Yeah.
I remember this strike.
Yep. So that is what this strike was. There was a Taken version later on, but that Taken version isn't really canon in any
I
way
was going to
other
say I
than
think
it
that's
was a
just like a
refresh.
yeah. I think it's like the same reason why we have the Devil's Lair in D2. It's because video game, and we
Yeah.
wanted to give you something for it, and so yeah. But yeah, I remember that strike. That one was and I remember the pod now. Yeah, the pod, like he crawls out of the pod at the end of it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So we arrive just in time to see Axor crawl out of his prison of elders pod, and then, as any good equipped fire team will do, we proceed to kick his teeth in.
All right.
Which
Check
accomplishes
the box.
Yep, check the box, which accomplishes removing a previous House of Wolves archon from the chessboard, and now truly leaving House of Winter leaderless and without direction.
Is this the last we see of House of Winter?
I believe they pop up once or twice more later on, but this is the last we see of them during the D1 campaign before the expansions. It's
Okay.
assumed that the Devils and House Winter are big enough that even without a leader, like they still exist. There's a power vacuum that now they're infighting to try and fill.
As Zavala would put it, the fallen always find a way. They always do. Yeah.
Yeah. But we're not done yet.
Okay.
The next house.
I'm trying to keep track of all these houses and what's left and what's not left, and
Yep.
I mean, we're really coming down to like there may be only like one or two houses left in all of Destiny. I'm again not thinking forward to Destiny 2, but at this point in time, it seems like there really are like I mean, Wolves is decimated. Decimated, captured, imprisoned, whatever. Like there's nothing left of Wolves. Winter now is Kellless. Devils is Kellless. Like they're not just Kellless. They're Kellless. They're Baronless. They're Archonless. They're Servitor Primeless. Like
Yeah.
there is no major leadership running any of these houses. So we have what, Kings and Kings. I think that's the only major one left.
Kings is the only major one left, and that's the next one we're going to talk about.
Okay.
So Kings actually does pretty well for themselves, all things considered, compared to the other houses, at least.
I mean, just having somebody alive and in charge is this just seems to be par is what we're shooting for.
So the only major run-in that we have with the House of Kings during the D1 campaign is that actually while we're chasing the Hive General Omnigul, Omnigul, in an attempt to shake the Guardian strike team that is after her, leads us through the House of Kings territory. And the House of Kings Baron, Fiskin, sees doesn't see Omnigul, or is not aware of not Omnigul. To this Baron, it's just some Guardians running into their territory, and they try and defend themselves. So
sure.
This King's Baron attempts to defeat the Guardians that are encroaching on their territory, and they are not successful. They are died. They are killed.
Is this a Guardians version of LOL? What?
A little bit, yeah. So that's the only major interaction we have with House of Kings during
in all of D1,
during the D1 campaign, the original
main campaign. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I do miss Omnigul. I that scream. That scream is
it's
so
iconic.
I had that as like my text message notification for a while, and like if you heard it go off, everyone was like, "What is wrong with you?"
That
But
sounds
then
about
those
right.
who knew, and they were like, "Oh shit,
Oh no, where is it?
where is it?" Like that was another. Again, this is me reminiscing a little bit. That was another fantastic Nightfall strike from D1. That was just a.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a genuinely hard one, but it was fun. It was that room. Like we have something similar in D2 with the Navoda strike, but that room was literally half the size of what it is in D2. Like it was the smallest boss fight room I think in all of D1. I can't think of any room that was smaller, and it was just
Yeah.
thousands and thousands of hive coming at you nonstop. Like there was never a point where you could like catch your breath. It was God, that was a good one. Okay, so we've
So
killed it. We've killed this lol what Baron um, for House Kings.
for House
Where does
Kings,
that lead us?
so that kind of concludes the major interactions between the Guardian and the Fallen houses during the D1 campaign. The
Right.
next time that really we deal with the Fallen in a great capacity is going to be during the House of Wolves expansion for Destiny 1. Now,
I thought these cats were dead.
House of Wolves had been, imprisoned primarily in the Prison of Elders, and for reasons still not really understood, Mara gifted Skolas to the Nine as some means of tribute or bribery or to get something back from them. We're not really sure what
It
the
seems like
deal
such a
there
weird.
was.
It seems like such a weird transaction, right? Like why? Like what I well, I guess I can kind of see why on the Nine's end, right? Like this is an alien force. Like cuz the Nine are central to the Soul System. They really don't
Right.
know I want to say don't know anything outside the Soul System. Um or at least I don't think they do. So to see this as an alien force and to have someone that communicates regularly with them have control of this of an alien force, it had to have been some means of study or something. That's the only thing I can think of.
I that makes the most sense to me as well. Is especially if Mara believes the Nine are responsible in some way for the fate of Sheer Ido, because remember, Sheer,
Oh,
just died, quote unquote, during the Reef Wars.
that's right. And
So
all that was left was that strange coin.
you
Oh, that could have been some type. I think you're right.
so this
I
this
think there was
might
some type of bargain
be
there.
yeah, this might be a like, hey, I'll give you this specimen if you give me Sheer back, or information about Sheer, or she might have been trying to cut a deal in that way. And for one reason or another, the Nine didn't bite. They essentially received Skolas and then just let him go. And
That's I'm looking at this from the point of view of the Nine, and this thing shows up. And you're just like, nah, screw that, and just sent it back. Like
return
what?
to sender.
Like what? How messed up is that? Like Skolas is just sitting here, just like this is dumb. Why am I a prisoner? Like this, and then appears before the Nine and is like, holy shit, what is this? And the Nine just looking at him like, nah, I don't want it, and just send it back. And he's just, what do you mean you don't want it? I'm Skolas. I'm Skolas. And the Nine's just like, nah, we're good. We're good.
So Skolas takes his unexpected release from captivity and uses it to send a rally cry across the soul system to all the different houses.
That's an important part too. Like the Nine doesn't give him back to Mara. They literally just release him. Like they
Right.
just spit him back out.
Yeah, he is free to do as he pleases. And what he does is try to rally all the houses to his banner. And we
Yeah.
actually see the message he sends out to all of the different houses via the D1 grimoire called Ghost Fragment Fallen 3. And that message goes like this: Ask them our name. Ask your masters what they call you. Ask the hollow, the hateful, the awoken with alien dreams encrusted in them. Ask them our name. Fallen. They name us fallen. Listen to me, wolf-born. Heed me, whirlwind scattered. I am the ghost of Cybele, the cunning claw of Eris, betrayed, chained, encrypted by the queen, and sent back from the darkness to save us all. The days of Kel and House end now. The calendar of slavery and abashment goes to the fire. We are a new calendar. We are an age of beginnings. Each of us is a day. I am the first, Kel of Kells, and I am the last, the Dreg of Dregs. I have conquered and been conquered. I am all of us, and all of us are I. In the shape of my life, I bind up all of us, all of our fury, all of our grief, all of the lives we have wasted against each other. Together we speak our new name. Remember the hope that brought us here. Remember the age before the whirlwind, when ether ran free, when we ruled ourselves and our futures as kings. We wanted more than glimmer and glints and hairlaways. Always remember that we came to this star in hope, and remember that we were denied. Remember the city of the death of children, the city that docks, which claimed for itself the great machine that might have saved us. Remember the city that even now sends its ghouls to murder our primes, starve our ether, and leave our young to die gasping. Curse that city and its name, 'cause the curse is just. We gathered to take that city and save ourselves from extinction, saying to each other, we must be a storm, a whirlwind in and of ourselves, a darkness, for it's said that only pain may be stolen from the dark, and we can let no more be stolen from us. We gathered to fight against our twilight, king and devil and winter, all of us, but us, the wolves. And why? What kept us from the gap? The reef, the queen, the slavers who played us against each other and docked us into subservience. These sly, sterile, unpeople, these mirages with cold minds twin to their own, these Kabadirus butchers that set us against each other. She played us. She made herself our Kel. And we were fools, O children of the whirlwind. We fought each other when we most needed unity. I fought my rivals when I should have fought the queen. But I remember now, my dregs, my captains, my Kells, each of us is all of us, and I remember, we are a people of resilience. I am the Kel of Kells because I want what we have lost. I am the Dreg of Dregs because I remember that a Dreg will grow back what is lost to him. Ask them my name. Ask them with the shock blade and the shrapnel launcher. Ask them with the skiff and the ketch. Ask your masters by what right they master you. You who have been hardened by centuries of flight. You who inherit the whirlwind. Ask the queen for her throne. Ask them our name and let them answer. You are Skolas, Kel of Kells. You are fallen no more. And that's the end of his message.
Dude, I just bull. I have several things to say about this entry.
Yeah.
The first one is, this is prophecy. This is the prophecy prophesied by House of, oh God, which was it?
House of Rain.
House of Rain.
Yep.
They prophesied a Kel of Kel. and this is prophecy coming true. This is Skolas. Now at this point in time, Skolas, is he declaring himself Kel of Kells, or is he like trying to rally up and have everyone call him Kel of Kells?
I think it's both, to be honest.
Okay.
So we don't know what the House of Rain prophecy is word for word. Uh, from what we've understood, from what Varix has told us, their prophecy is essentially just that Akel will rise to bring unity amongst all the houses,
To
and
to
will
be
be
that Kel of Kel.
right. Will be the Kel of Kells. And I don't know that we're seeing that prophecy being fulfilled necessarily, but we're seeing Skolas believing that
Yeah.
he is the one to fulfill it and using that kind of, the Eliksni version of an Arthurian legend to
I
try and rally everyone behind him, to try to get
so
everyone to recognize him as this grand leader and pledge to his cause.
so it's interesting that you said Arthurian, right? Like I had a totally different person in mind when I thought of this entry, and as I was listening to this entry, and the level of public speaking that was being happening.
Yeah, yeah.
So and again, you know me, I'm a huge World War II history buff. I love reading about that time period, and I've studied a lot of it. This is very similar to, and even the way it happens is very similar to Hitler. Hitler was imprisoned. While he was imprisoned, he saw that, he said, "Okay, this is the way I need to lead the people," and da 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 da, and writes his book and all that stuff, and then comes to power. Skolas has a very similar way. He's fighting between all these different houses. He gets imprisoned after his time in prison, where Mara trades him off to the Nine, and the Nine's like, "Screw this, I don't want you." He comes out the other side of like, "Okay, let's rally up. Let's rally up. We shouldn't have been fighting each other. We should have been fighting the Mara. We should have been fighting this. Like, come to me, rally to me. Let's go." Take back what's ours type thing. We are fallen no more. Like it it it's I don't know. There's this, like, throughout that entire reading, I had this very like image of him like giving this speech across like all the airwaves to all the Eliksni people of like, rally to me. And again, because that's where my my brain goes, and that's the point of time that I've studied and looked at a lot. That's who I thought of in there, and it's just it's interesting to see the similarities there, that are a rallying cry in the darkness of so many people coming from the same place and being lost, and having lost so many different battles at so many different points in time, to finally have a voice in the dark to say, "Okay, this guy, he at least talks like he knows what he's doing. Let's go. Let's rally to Skolas. Let's make him the Kell of Kells."
Yeah, no, I think the similarities are worth, are worth talking about. The Arthurian legend portion I attribute only to this prophecy of there being, a king of kings kind of thing. Um
Okay.
that's the
Okay.
only bit
Yeah.
that I kind of see as Arthurian, and in that there, will be a great uniter that is benevolent and will make everything better kind of thing. Um but how Skolas goes about it and how Skolas is portrayed, I think you're pretty much on the money there. He a lot of similar patterns. And another thing is, in his message, not only is he saying to rally and unite, but he's also giving them a very clear
Yeah.
target for their aggression.
Yeah. And I think that's where I drew that similarity there. And it's like he's trying to get them to target a single thing and say, "This is what it is. This is who we need to go after." And it's spooky, right? Like it's really is kind of spooky to see that coming from Skolas, and to kind of think of it in terms of human history, and go, "Okay, I've seen how this plays out before, and this is bad.
Yeah.
And that's where I think of Skolas as like he is bad. Like he is just bad. Full stop.
Oh
There's
yeah.
no like he's bad because or he's bad but no, it's Skolas is bad. Full stop.
Yeah. And his rallying cry though, it works.
Yeah.
He gets people invested, especially the former members of the House of Wolves, which up until this point were either imprisoned or a part of Mara's military. Like they had
Yeah.
been assimilated into the military, in some cases, even on the Queen's Guard in her throne room. And it's very interesting to see because after this rally cry goes out, the next event would be technically what is the opening cutscene of the House of Wolves in Destiny 1. And in that
Yeah.
cutscene, Mara's Eliksni Queensguard attempt to assassinate her while she's sitting on the throne.
I mean, that's the play, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's I mean, I can't think of a better play. Like you've got I don't want to call them defectors yet because but I mean in that assassination attempt they are now defectors to Mara. Like it's almost like they're defectors both ways, right? Like in one sense they're captured and are now kind of defectors of the Eliksni to the Awoken now. And so now the Awoken now they're treated as equals in the Awoken society, and now this assassination attempt happens, and now they are uh, deserters or not deserters but they're now no longer part of Mara's court. Like
Right.
now they're defectors of the Awoken now back to the Eliksni. Like
Yes.
the 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 I don't want to say that all of House of Wolves seem like they're kind of opportunists, but they kind of do. I feel like they're very and maybe it's just all Eliksni because of the whirlwind, right? Because of the whirlwind and having to deal with a pirate's life and having to deal with survival of the fittest, like every single one of them seems like an opportunist. Like they wherever they can take their chances of we're going to get a win where we get a win, we don't care how we do it, that's what's happening. Now it definitely seems like ever since they've made it to the soul system, uh, it, well maybe even before then because of the long drift, the long haul. I keep wanting to say long haul. Uh, the long drift was obviously way before they like. I mean, it was thousands of years before they got to the soul system during that time, but they definitely I feel like they are very much opportunists there.
Oh yeah. No, I think that is 100% accurate. And we see a little conversation about this defection in the D1 Grimoire card called The Hunt for Skolas that kind of shows a little conversation immediately after the defection of the House of Wolves from the Queen's Guard and elsewhere. Uh, between Mara and Petra, and the only Eliksni that has stayed loyal to Mara through this, Varix. And that little
Yeah.
grimoire card goes like this: Varix, my queen, my Kel, it is Skolas, they say. Petra, that's impossible. My lady, you assured us all that Skolas would never be seen again. Mara, has it been confirmed? What does it matter? They always fear him, dead or alive. If not this Skolas, then another Kel. It is why the Queen Breakers rise and the prison breached. No one will call you Kel when a true hare makes a claim. Petra, report to my brother for any intel from the crows. Varix, see to your channels. Find the one who calls himself Skolas. Yes, of course, my queen. Your Grace, I will not relent until it is done. I know. That's why I've called you both back. And that's the end of that little lore card.
Yeah. Skolas. I every time Varric says it, like I remember going through the expansion, and now I was a little late to the Destiny game. I started playing in Taken King, so with Taken King came the, if you bought it, you got the two DLCs, Dark Blow and House of Wolves, and so like I didn't realize at the time that they were like separate missions, and so like I'm doing like a main storyline, and then I do a House of Wolves storyline, and then this thing happens, and then I do a Taken King thing, and then I do, so I'm bouncing around like crazy. But then like I remember going back through it again and going, oh, okay, this is this storyline, this is this storyline. Let me play these individually, and I always remember Varix was your main point of contact throughout that entire DLC. Um, he was like everywhere you went, it was him telling you, this is the next pot, this is the next place to chase down Skolas, this is the next place to go, next place to go. So I always remember his voice, Skolas, say blah blah, yeah.
Yeah, Ferrix is a fun one. And he and Petra were the main points of contact for the House of Wolves DLC. And they are the ones that are accompanying us over the comms for the various missions of that DLC. So in response to learning that at the very least there's been an uprising. It's unconfirmed at this point for the Awoken if this is truly Skolas or someone just trying to enact his name for their advantage. But regardless, this is a problem that the queen decides they're not equipped to deal with on their own, or she does not want to risk her own resources unneededly. And she also knows that due to the events of the D1 main campaign, she is a guardian that owes her a favor that she can call in.
I was going to say there's there to owe Queen Mara favors.
Yeah.
Kind of a big deal.
So the queen makes a proclamation. She says, "Open the reef and its treasury to the Guardians in exchange for their assistance with hunting down Skolas and the betrayers of the House of Wolves." And thus
I mean,
starts the campaign.
if there's anything a VIP 2014 can get called upon, that's loot.
Oh yeah.
you you tell us there's loot in something, we'll go farm the piss out of it. We don't care.
So the very first thing that the Guardian does is tracks the signal of this message to Venus. And it's found there that Skolas has already negotiated with the House of Winter, the remnants of the House of Winter on Venus, and has won their support. So, this is a house that is presumably going to be allied with him and assist him with his, claim to power, essentially. And because now us, the Guardian, have actually seen Skolas at this point, we know that it is in fact him. And
Yep.
we see a little bit of that information conveyed in the D1 Grimoire card called Akel Rising, where there's a conversation between Mara and Petra that goes like this. "So it's no lie. It is Skolas?" "Yes, my lady. A guardian got eyes on him in the Ishtar sink. I used ghost telemetry to confirm. Same pelt, same awful voice. We drove him from the Winter's lair. How did he... And you would have me consider this a success. What of Winter itself? Your report is unclear." "You are correct, my lady. I would not call our mission a success. Skolas managed to win over, well, a substantial number of Winter soldiers have taken up the wolf banner. He calls himself Kell of Kells now." Silence follows. We found him once, we can do it again. I have a plan in place. As soon as the Guardian returns, then go. Continue the hunt. Petra, you must not fail. I will not, my lady. That's the end of that grimoire.
Yeah, hunt him down. Captured him once. How hard can it be to get him a second time?
Yeah.
And we got VIP 2014 on our hands. This should be a cakewalk.
But so Skolas, when he's going around to these houses, he's not just saying, okay, House of Winter is going to have a pact with House of Wolves. He is saying, abandon your house and take up my banner as a new wolf.
Literally absorbing them into his house. Like it's interesting to think of the idea of a Kell of Kells, right? Like the Kell is the house of, he's like everything. He's the leader, he's the military thing, he's the politician, he's everything. He's the family man. Like he is literally everything for every single Eliksni underneath him. And to think of a Kell of Kells, like that would be like the ultimate Eliksni, right? Like he is he's concerned about the well-being of every single Eliksni. He's concerned about the rights, the protection, the everything for every single Eliksni under a single Eliksni is kind of mind-blowing. And for him to just declare himself that, and like it's interesting to hear him declare himself that, and then for the Queen and Petra to just kind of be like, oh, well, he's calling himself Kell now. Who cares? Whatever. Like they're very, it's almost like they don't see the I don't want to say they don't see the drasticness in this or the severity of this, but it's they do feel, I feel like they're very nonchalant about it. They're like, well, we'll just capture him again, no big deal.
Well, I don't think that they understand the gravity of the prophecy behind that title. You know, they might just see it as someone, you know, making a vie for power. They might not understand what all that actually means if, you know, if what he's stating is true to the Eliksni.
Okay.
And I think there's a good amount of evidence to suggest, as we'll see here, that even Skolas doesn't, he believes it, but he doesn't believe it blindly. So what I mean by that, with the House of Winters, which he was successful in converting a large number of them over to House of Wolves, we got to remember House of Winter after VIP 2014 was left without a Kell and without an Archon, essentially leaderless. Yeah. So for Skolas to come in and present himself as a new leader, if nothing else, was probably very appetizing, just to have stability, just to have a consistent source of, you know, direction.
Yeah.
But that's not the case for all the houses. And we'll see that Skolas doesn't take the same approach with all of the houses either. Skolas identifies the House of Devils as actually having formed a new shaky leadership. And the Devils and the Wolves, I don't think really get along.
Oh.
And so rather than try to go himself and negotiate with the House of Devils, Skolas instead sends the Silent Fang, which were his assassin force from the Reef War. He sends the Silent Fang to assassinate the leadership of the House of Devils in order to, after they're gone, come in and, you know, use that power vacuum to his advantage.
Yeah. That's I don't want to point out similarities again, but somebody during World War II or the pre-World War II did the same thing to take power.
So we see this as the Guardian, you know, Petra and Varix learn about this plot to decapitate House Devils so that he can take it over. And Petra is very familiar with the Silent Fang via
Oh
the
yeah.
fights during the Reef Wars. And it was, I believe it was the leader of the Silent Fang that raised Amethyst, which killed her sister.
Yep.
Um, so she's got a vested interest in seeing the Silent Fang not succeed. So she and Varix advised the Guardian to go to the House of Devils and somewhat surprisingly offer them a certain amount of protection. It's not necessarily that we come down and go to the devils like, hey, we're gonna fight on your side for the next like 2 hours, and then we're leaving and we're enemies again. It's a case of
I do like that idea though.
Yeah.
Like we're just gonna we'll be here for 10 minutes, just to make sure you don't die, and then we'll come back and kill you later.
But instead, it's a case of the House of Devils knows Skolas is coming after them, and they have actually booby trapped all of their strongholds, like just all over the place, mines and the laser bomb, the tripwire bombs, and all over the place during this mission. And as you're going through, you're essentially in a race between you and the Silent Fang to see who can reach who can reach, if we can reach the Silent Fang before they reach the Devils. And thankfully, the Guardian is successful in doing so. We eliminate the Silent Fang, in the process protecting the House of Devils, because we don't want them to be unstable. We don't want them to be in a position where Skolas can swoop in and add them to his house. And so in a weird way, we defended Devils to prevent a greater threat.
Yeah, that's definitely a way to look at it.
So Skolas continues his plans, though. So he understands, okay, House of Devils didn't work out. Rather than try and go for them again, he's going to move on to another house. And this time, he moves on to the House of Kings. And Kings, he doesn't have the same rocky relationship with. So he decides instead, let's send an emissary to the House of Kings and try and, talk to them and get them to join that way. But Skolas isn't going to go himself. Like I said, he's going to send an emissary.
Sure.
And so our Guardian, again, this meeting is learned of by Petra and Varix, and they direct us to go to the King's territory in the Cosmodrome, I believe. We fight through the King's stronghold and kind of bust the door down on what is a meeting between two of the House of King barons and a baron of the House of Wolves.
I remember this fight too. You literally you come into this room and there's 3 big old captains at a table, and you kick their teeth in.
Yep. We do what we do best. We leave no one standing.
That was a hard one on heroic. That was because that room, that's another like small room fight there where like there's not really a lot of places to go and there's just constantly enemies spawning. Like I remember this room. I remember that fight. Oh man. Okay.
So we we get in there and we decide that the best way to handle the situation is to just leave no one standing. So the Guardian is successful in killing both of the barons of the House of Kings as well as the baron of the House of Wolves.
What do they say in the Marvel movie? Kick names, take ass. Yeah.
Effectively denying Skolas the King's support, because with this group he's had a tentative relationship with, not aggressive, but they're not supportive either. It's now been shown that he can't even defend a meeting between the two, so they're clearly not going to ally themselves with him.
Yeah. Because I mean, you're not gonna go to the Kell of Kells. I put that in little quotations there. If he can't even defend a meeting between a bunch of emissaries, right? Like that's
Right.
as far as like looking at this from like a leadership point of view. Like, dude, you couldn't even defend it from one dude. Like, how are you supposed to be the provider for the entire Eliksni people? There's no way. Like, f off. Like, get out of here.
Yeah. So, needless to say, Skolas's whole Kell of Kells thing not looking so good at the moment.
Yeah.
He's gone to the 3 big houses that are left, has gotten one of them to join, and only because they were leaderless, and the other 2, for one reason or another, are not under his control. So he's getting a little desperate at this point.
Yeah.
And so what he does is he returns to Venus and enters the Vault of Glass in an attempt
Bold move, Cotton.
To use the vault to pull members of the original House of Wolves from throughout time to bolster his army.
I remember this. I remember this very vividly. Like that's a ballsy move to
That's
just
a desperate
walk.
move.
Yes. Yes. I think it is more that than ballsy. Because I mean, you got to think the Vault of Glass is the Vex stronghold. Like, they can unmake you in there. They could trap you in there for eternity. They could make it to where you didn't exist. Like, desperate definitely seems the right call here to call that a desperate move, to enter the Vault of Glass, to then just take shit. Like, who does that? I know who does. Guardians do that.
Guardians do that on a weekly basis.
We make our own fate. We do what we want.
But it's worth noting, though, that he's successful, at least to some degree, because as our Guardian arrives to try and, thwart this new plan, Skolas is starting to bring in members of the House of Wolves from presumably other times.
Yep. I remember this is at the very top of that Vex structure, and there's like all those gates there, and like you're jumping across different platforms, and he's literally like, there's warp gates opening, and there's just tons of dregs, vandals, like everything is just pouring through these gates in what seems like a nonstop thing, and Skolas is there, and you're just constantly like you're fighting Fallen, you're fighting a captain, you're fighting Skolas, like you're constantly moving in there. That was another really tough one on I miss those old heroic missions. Those were tough.
No, and this, we didn't know it at the time, or I don't think anyone really keyed into it that I remember at the time. This is the first probably glimmer of the sacred splicers having the ability to access Vex tech.
Oh shit.
Now I don't know that Skolas is ever described as a sacred splicer, but he's from House of Wolves.
He's doing it though. I mean, he's accessing the Vex network. Holy shit. I didn't even think of that.
Well, and he's from House of Wolves, which is the same house that Mithrax originally was from. So perhaps was exposed to the same splicer training that Mithrax was.
I think so.
During his time there.
Makes sense why he would. So I guess that does make a lot more sense then. If he, maybe it's not so desperate. Maybe it's calculated.
I mean, calculated, yes. I think it's still quite a risk to invade the Vault of Glass.
I'll give you that one. I will give you that one. But I mean, to invade it with splicer tech and splicer tech knowledge, like that, I don't know. I think that's a pretty. I think that's a calculated risk.
Yeah,
Definitely desperate, definitely ballsy, but more calculated risk than anything.
yeah, I think that's accurate.
If memory serves me correctly, he kind of failed.
Yeah, it did not work out as well as he wanted it to. VIP 2014, pretty hard to kill, even
Yeah,
when you have a slowly growing army of fallen.
and having a spawning restriction zone, like yeah.
Yeah, and needless to say, we the Guardian kick his teeth in, and
We're getting really good
we're
at
getting really
this.
good at this. Yeah,
And this isn't even the end of the first year of Destiny 1. Like this is like what 6 months into Destiny? Like we're
yeah.
getting really good at kicking teeth in.
So we leave Skolas beaten and battered, but not dead,
Right?
under the request of Petra,
Yep.
of the queen via Petra. And Petra then comes by with a galliot and, you know, captures Skolas
Scoops him right up.
and takes him back to the reef in the prison of elders.
Turns out it really is just as easy as that. They capture him once, they capture him again.
Yeah, yeah. Who would have knew? Um, and we can see kind of the interactions that come from the recapture of Skolas in the D1 Grimoire card called Queen's Ransom. And that card goes like this. A bellow erupts from the barred grate at her feet. Bony fingers claw at the bars, their sharp points just inches from her toes. Prince Aldrin chuckles. At the edge of the room, the Techians circle, their implants glowing faintly blue in the shadows. He's been amusing since Petra bring him, Varix injects, practically purring with glee. He say Kell of Kells over and other such nonsense. Skolas bellows again. Varix strikes Skolas's grasping fingers with his staff. The queen's expression remains mild. She looks down her nose at the glowing eyes burning in the shadows beneath the grate. Skolas falls abruptly silent, and then a low, soft growl, almost like a whine, escapes from the cell below. Varix's mechanical hand clicks as he snaps them together in surprise. What's he? Begins Aldrin. Varix interrupts with a burst of guttural clicks directed at the grate. The queen does not react. What did he say? He says, Varix hisses under his breath. He makes no sense, my queen. He speaks of light snuffer, dark binder. The queen aims her eyes at Skolas, her expression unchanged. I see. He will not say more. He does not need to. And she turns towards the door. My queen, what of this one? Says Aldrin. He awaits your sentence. You would not sentence a rabid dog, or a hive thrall, or a bomb. The queen's justice is wasted on one such as it. She pauses. Varix. Yes, your grace. Skolas is yours. Let the children of light have their play with him. Ah, you are might and justice, my queen, my Kell. The Techians gather at the door as the queen approaches. Prince Aldrin holds it open with a small bow, and the queen touches his shoulder as she passes. Send a crow to Mercury, and another to our new friend in the tower. And that's the end of that lore card.
What is Skolas talking about? What is this? What is it? Light snuffer? Dark drinker?
Light Snuffer Dark Binder.
Dark binder. What is he babbling about?
So my first thought, because this is the only place in at least as far as Ishtar is concerned, this is the only place that these terms come up. My best guess is that during his time with the Nine, Skolas is either aware that Oryx is coming. Light Snuffer, Dark Binder could be Oryx, and would certainly line up with, Taken King being the next major event. Or perhaps he's aware of the witness. We don't know what he saw or experienced when he was with the Nine. So maybe.
Por qué no los dos?
Yeah. A little bit of both.
That's just like, on the surface, this just seems like the ramblings of a madman. Like,
right.
He's thought himself Kell of Kells. He's tried to rally these houses. He's been thwarted left and right. He gets recaptured. I mean, it could have been, he could have seen some shit in the Vex network. Like, who knows what he saw while he was screwing around in there. He could have seen some shit with the Nine. Who knows what he saw when he was with them. I mean, this is a Eliksni who's been more places than any other Eliksni before him. Like, I mean, he's been through some stuff, and then to see it as like on one end, like, obviously, and I think of Varix as this, like, insect noises intensify as he's like looking down at him in the cell, just like shut up, you. And he's to bring up these terms, like, maybe he did see Oryx coming, because you're right, like, that would have been the next thing would have been the Dark Below. And I always need reminding of this. Did Dark Below come first, or did House of Wolves come first?
I'm fairly certain Dark Below was first.
So Dark Below happens, Crota kill him, then Skolas comes to power with House of Wolves, and so he could be talking about, prophesizing about, the coming of Oryx to the system, because Taken King was the next thing after that. Like, it was D1 Vanilla, Dark Below, House of Wolves, Taken King.
Yeah, and Mara seems to indicate that she knows what he's talking about already. And
that's true.
We know that she had visions of Oryx coming to invade, and presumably of her own death even. Prior to this, because I'm pretty sure she shared some of those with Shir Ido. So that would lend a little more to it being related to Oryx in particular, but I think you could argue either and be valid.
I do have one other thought, and I don't know why this crosses my mind, but Aramis. But I don't see her as like Light Snuffer, right? Like,
right. And Aramis at this point in time would have either been either on a pirate crew or just a member of the House of Devils.
Because she was the one that and I put this in quotations again, gifted Rackus and God, I keep forgetting the second one's name.
Civics.
But the Civics, the two of them to Mithrex's mom.
Yeah.
So I mean, she there was an interaction there, and then she just presumably just isn't mentioned. I mean, she just kind of like blips out of existence. She's not mentioned again until obviously way later.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like it I don't know. Maybe I think you're right. I think the only two things that it does make sense to be would be Oryx or the coming of Oryx or the coming of the Witness. One of the two.
Yeah.
That would be my yeah. It'd have to be one of those two.
Yeah. So the House of Wolves uprising has been quelled. Skolas
Boom.
is in custody within the prison of elders, to be left to the devices of the children of light, of the guardians,
I
as
was
a
I was going to
plaything.
say we get to fight him once a week after that.
We
There's
do. He's essentially not. He's a raid boss without the raid, kind of in game.
it's a dungeon boss. That to
Yeah,
me,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the Prison of Elders was the original dungeon of all of Destiny. Like that, and the players of D2 now think of, oh, Prison of Elders, that's just a strike that we do, the Warden of Nothing. No, the Prison of Elders was like this 3-man activity that you used to do in D1, and it was like an escalating thing. Like I want to say there was 3 or 4 different levels of it, and like the first one you went into the different rooms, like the room that you come across where it's like Cabal and Vex in the Warden of Nothing strike, and there's like the 3 bombs you have to defuse, and they're like dismantle mines, yes, like that was the whole thing there. Like there's a bunch of different rooms in that area. And then that pit that you drop back down once you finish so many waves, you drop down the pit and there was loot down there. And that was the whole thing with like with the Warden of Nothing, where it's like, haha, the trickster left you a joke, haha. It's this like throwback to D1 of the Challenge of Elders and the Prison of Elders, which was again, in my opinion, the original dungeon. You went in as a 3-man. I think Skolas specifically, you had to have a 3-man team.
Yeah, it
You
was not
couldn't
match made.
Yeah, you couldn't queue up for the Skolas one, but like the lesser levels you could queue into, because I remember queuing into those um, on a weekly basis. But then like the Skolas one itself, you had to get a group of 3 together, and then you went through the different levels and you fought Skolas, and it was I think of that as the original dungeon.
Yeah. No, I think that's pretty accurate. So there's a few other things that happened though at the tail end of the House of Wolves expansion here. The first being that the House of Wolves, the remaining members of the House of Wolves, um, didn't necessarily just want to leave their Kel stuck in the prison of elders. So what they did was they took a page out of House of Winter's book, and maybe this is the members of Winter that defected to Wolves. They hired Tannix.
God
Uh,
dang it. Fucking okay. Nope. This is it then. This is the Eliksni answer for everything. Fucking Tannix.
yep.
So we now have an answer for 3 of the races. We just have to figure out what the answer for is. Callus the answer for the Cabal? Is that
Maybe.
or is there a better answer? I don't know of an answer for the Cabal other than just fight through it, headbutt your way through it.
Drink the
But
seas.
something. We drink the sea, we eat the mountains. Like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
So they use the universal Eliksni problem solver here, the remainders of the wolves, and they hire Tannix, specifically in this case to steal artifacts from the Hellmouth, to attempt to bring the House of Wolves some source of power that will allow them to break Skolas out. Is the thought?
Seems like they wised up since the last time, because last time they told him to do something, he just brought him the pod and was like, deal with it. Sucks to suck. They're like, okay, smartass, we got you this time. Go find us other things that are going to give us power to get him out, and then we'll go get him out ourselves.
Yeah. But unfortunately for them and for him, Tannix is tracked by the Vanguard in his attempt to steal these artifacts, and is tracked and followed to his catch by a strike team of Guardians. who then teleport via his teleport pad into his catch, trounce all the way through it, chasing him the entire time until eventually reaching the bridge, I guess, or maybe it's just kind of an ancillary
Captain's
chamber.
chair.
But regardless, we reach this space, we do battle with and kill quotation marks Tannix.
I was yeah, yeah, yes, quotation marks.
Yeah.
We'll go with that.
And with the death of Tannix, House of Wolves has no means to try and break Skolas out of the prison, and Skolas is eventually challenged by and killed by the guardians that put him there.
Canonically. Like, obviously,
yeah.
because video game, you kept doing it week after week after week and got loot and stuff.
Yeah.
But canonically, we kill Skolas as our little our plaything for the light bearers.
And this has a interesting effect on Varix. The death of Skolas does. Not that Varix had any love for Skolas. He betrayed him. He saw him as this vicious, terrible thing. But the events leading up to his death and just to see what has happened to the houses, this has given Varix a point of pause. And we can kind of see what's going through his head with our final reading for the night, which is the D1 Grimoire card called Skolas Defeated. And that one goes like this. Skolas is dead. Varix sits carving at his piece of amethyst. His undocked arms are weaker, less precise, but it is a comfort to feel the crystal press hard into his palm. The knife slips, he cuts himself. Ah, he says, and of course right then the door opens. Varix has no privacy. Varix wants no privacy. Varix lives to serve the queen. It's Pt.3 Venge. She's masked against the ether air. The prince wants to speak, she says, and then seeing him unmasked and bleeding, she chuckles. Pt.3 depends on Varix for intelligence, and Varix, frustrated with her insane risk-taking and bravado, sometimes gives her tips meant to get her killed. Pt.3 has figured this out. Pt.3 and Varix know each other's agendas and each other's strengths, and to Varix that's as close as any two people can get. Pt.3 is smart. She sends guardians now, people who can die as much as they like. You slipped, she said. Varix holds up the amethyst in his bleeding hands. It's a reef gem. I wound myself, he says, to make this more beautiful. She stares into the gem with a distant, awoken eye. What does she see? Varix knows she has visions, and he knows those visions haunt her, drive her. The awoken are twinned to powers that terrify Varix. He'd dock himself again before he'd let the queen's witches near him, the witches that raised Pt.3. The unfairness of it makes him want to roar. Why does everyone else have this patronage? Why do the Hive have gods and the Vex have sprawling time-bent minds and the Cabal have endless reinforcements? Why do the Awoken whisper to the stars and listen for the whisper back? The voices from the Jovians, the song in the dark? Why do the Guardians get the great machine's blessing? Was it like that before the whirlwind? Where were there fallen heroes crowned in ghosts who strode in the battlefield fearless and full of light? Why do they tell stories about reclaiming the lost glory of humanity, and no stories about the lost glory of Varix's people? the house of judgment that once kept codes of dignity and law. Why can't the fallen have that strength? But no, that strength is not for them, not for Varix. Just this bleeding, sad pragmatism, just Dreg's strength, barely hanging on. The alternate is Skolas's strength, fighting together, raging against extinction. But look where that's gotten the species. The House of Devil's Prime is dead. The House of Winter's leadership devastated. The poor exiles trying to claw out some security against the hive. In the last few years, the fallen have lost so much, and everything is escalating around them. There are gods and powers converging on this system. Old machines waking up, old bones whispering flatteries. They need a new way. Put your mask on, Petra says. The prince gets sullen if he's kept waiting. Not like us, Varric says, oh so mild. The wound on his hand will heal. His work in the prison of elders, setting up the trial by combat, building an audience and relationship with the reef's scavengers and armories, will bring him a little closer towards rebuilding the House of Judgment. Skolas's fury has guttered out. The fallen may yet accept peaceful, lawful rule. They may yet survive. They'll hang on. We're very patient, yes? Petra looks down on him with pity and contempt and a strange fondness. And Varric dons his mask. And that's the end of that lore card.
The fallen will survive. They always do. Yeah. It's kind of like, I mean, he says it there, like the hive have their gods, the cabal, endless reinforcements, the vex, the timelines, the humanity. They have the great machine, they have the light, they have guardians. Like, they've reclaimed their humanity, they've reclaimed golden age stuff. Like, where's our win? Where's the win for the Eliksni people? Like, are we just doomed to fail forever? Like, that's just, man, that's a kind of a sombering moment there, right? Like, sobering, sombering. I don't know, both.
Yeah,
It's just a
the bit
yeah.
that stuck out for me most was his thought that, you know, the humans have this desire, uh this want to return to the glory of their great golden age.
Yeah.
And none of the Eliksni, none or the humans or any of them ever talk about wanting to return to what the Eliksni have lost. None of them.
Oh my
They tell
gosh.
stories about Reese.
But they never talk about returning to it. It's all
Right.
about, how do I claim power for myself? How do I become the Kell of Kells? How do I, man, for a lone house, for a lone house judgment guy, that's got to be like, that's got to be hell.
Yeah.
Like, nobody even cares. None of the Eliksni people even care to return to the Golden Age. They just want their great machine. They just want their whatever. Like, and like, all the fighting throughout all this time in the Soul System. Not once have they like tried to like go get the great machine or anything. Like, they fought humanity because humanity's underneath it. But it I don't know, man. It just, they all just talk about just greatness for the sake of greatness. They don't even talk about returning to a time of greatness. Man, that's a jeez.
Saying with the somber notes in mind, there's a dark shadow on the horizon that we will talk about next episode.
Ooh. Spooky. Okay. All right. Man, man, I need a beer after that. Holy cow, that was a rough one to end on. All right. Well, we got shout outs. I do have one in mind that I wanted to mention before I forget it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Somebody had tweeted us about the idea of like um, lawful growth disorder return to law, uh,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
referring to the Eliksni people, I'm kind of seeing that now, right? Like law. I can't remember who tweeted it to us, so I apologize I'm bad with names. That's just all there is to it.
No, I can look it up here. Because I remember seeing that one.
You look it up, and I'm going to go into the idea of this.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's that idea of like there was lawfulness, Reese, and the peacefulness of Reese and the golden age and all that stuff. Then, or sorry, the peacefulness of Reese. Then growth, the great machine shows up, and there's this golden age. There's this tons of growth and tons of expansion and everything like that. Then disorder, the whirlwind, which is and the whirlwind and the long drift and the time afterward. Like I think, as far as storytelling right now, in the history of the Eliksni, we are still in that grief period, or we're still in that like disorder period or destruction period. That's like there's not really any type of lawfulness or happiness going on. And so I know eventually, looking at D2 right now, the current state of the Eliksni, they're kind of back in this lawful state, but we're definitely still in that like that bad time, you know?
Yeah, things are not going well for them. But that tweet came to us from Darren over
Okay.
on our Twitter. That full tweet was law being order was the first step. Second step was growth, learning and building. And the third was destruction, corruption and war, which then leads back into law and restarts the cycle. And yeah, I think that's fairly accurate to what
Yeah.
we've been seeing with the Eliksni. I would say it seems like the step 3, corruption and war, is taking a lot longer than the others for them.
It's kind of like the most part that's written about. Like nobody writes about the good times; they only write
Right.
about the bad times. That's all we really have. So yeah,
Yeah.
we're definitely in that destruction. That step 3 here for a while.
Yeah. But no, that was a good one and fits very well into this episode.
Yeah.
I say another shout out we had coming to us from Twitter is from a Brian Blair, who says, making the slow Thursday go by a little faster. Love your show and can't get enough. Learned so much and love Myth's voice acting during the lore book readings. Thank
Doesn't
you.
he do a great job? I love it when he goes into character. Like I love Myth when he goes into those different characters. It's very fun. It's very fun to listen to.
Well, I'm glad you guys enjoy it because I still think it's awful and will actively like skip over those parts when I'm editing unless I know there's something I messed up. So
I tell you what, like if you get down a really good barracks, like you get the insect noises intensifies really good, then you know you've hit next level.
Yeah. No. I say a more general shout out that I wanted to do, since we didn't have any other personalized ones this week, which is fine. But a generalized one, on Spotify, we, as of today, the time of recording, just hit 100 Spotify reviews, with our overall rating being a 4.9 out of 5, which is
Get the fuck out of here.
insane. So thank you.
That's awesome. That's 100 reviews at a 4.9. Shit. I don't have words for that.
I know. So thank you very much for thinking that highly of us, and
Absolutely.
say we hope to keep living up to that expectation.
Yeah. Hell yeah. All right. Well, I guess I'll throw a thanks out. I don't really know who to. Do I thank Skolas? Is that the play here? No, we likened him to Hitler earlier. That's probably a bad idea to thank him. Maybe thanks to Petra for recapturing. I don't even know who to thank. You know what? Screw it. We'll thank Varix.
There you
He's
go.
just out there doing the Eliksni thing, hoping for a better time for his people, and just wait until the day comes. So you know what? Thanks, Varix, for being true to your people and keeping a stiff upper lip and thinking forward to the future, hopefully.
Yeah.
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 That's my thanks to Varix.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Myth, you want to throw out our usuals?
Yeah. So I say for anyone that is our current listeners, you know, if you enjoyed what you've heard tonight, please go ahead and leave us a rating on your platform of choice. Rate us what you think we're worth. We always appreciate that, as well as spreading the word to others that might enjoy our content. If you leave a review that has text on it, you may hear yourself in a shout out here. Or if you happen to reach out to us via our Twitter, which is just at Myths and Stories, spelled the same as the title of the show, we review those as we can, and we like to talk about those here too. Be it just a kind word or a question or a theory or whatnot, we like to discuss those here.
Or even a clarification. We had somebody remind us that that scurvy is not the final boss. That it's actually II is the final boss of Catch Crash, and scurvy is the guys you summon.
Yeah. Yep. So we appreciate those kindly worded hey, think you might have missed this kind of scenarios, because we're human.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
we appreciate all that. At the time of release for this episode, it will be the day after. So I will also wish everyone, a happy Halloween, or as Ido says, a happy halls between.
The halls between. I love Ido. She's so innocent.
She's wonderful.
Yeah.
But
All
yeah,
right. Well, anything else, Myth?
that's it.
All righty. Well, then from all of us lore nerds to all of you guardians out there, we'll see you next time.